Start our meeting. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Cody, roll call, please.
Supervisor Gunning?
Here.
Trustee Hauk?
Here.
Trustee Lannon?
Here.
Clerk Cody here. Treasurer Rice is excused. Trustee Worley is excused. And Bill Micus is
Phil's is in a ditch somewhere, maybe, I don't know. So we'll figure it out.
not here.
All right. That brings us to approval of the agenda. So at this time, we need to have a
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the agenda as shown, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to public comment. And this is going to be restricted to 3 minutes regarding items on this agenda and this agenda only. This will be an opportunity for comments only. Questions to the board will not be answered at this time. Yes, sir. If you'd like to state your name.
Yes, my name is Bill DeKett, and I'm with Halt Fire representing Pierce Fire Truck Company. And so I just had to, I have a history with the Mount Pleasant Fire Department I just wanted to share with you, and it'll take about 2 minutes and 58 seconds. But the old fire department, when I came to college here, they took me under the wing. I joined the fire department in my town of East Tawas in 1969. I came here. They allowed me in their fire station. They taught me things. They let me come to their meetings. And I remember walking in the door and seeing a fire truck that said Union Township on it. I believe it was a Mack. So they were very good to me back then. So, and the new fire department, the modern one, I just wanted to say you have an excellent team. Just, I'm sure you know this, but they spent many, many hours looking at the spec for the fire truck. Gerard and Will spent countless hours going over and over and over it. So very much that was with my company. They also did it with other companies, so a lot of time was spent. Sometimes a township will see a fire truck at a house fire or on the side of a road for an accident or a carbon monoxide call or whatever it is, and sometimes they don't think about everything that had to go into that, so they have the right equipment on that truck, and they did that excellent job doing that. So, and they don't do it just for fire trucks. They spent countless hours on air packs, and I stole what they did, and I bought the same kind of air packs for my fire department in East Tawas. So tools, they down to the kind of tools they buy, Nupla tools. I copied them years ago with Nupla tools, and I had one that broke, and I called the company and I said the little springy thing broke in your tool, and they said, we're so sorry, we'll send you another one. And I said, well, how much is it? Nothing, we're just sorry that it broke. And they said, how old is it? I said, it's 22 years old. Well, they should last longer than that, they said. But I just wanted to just say what a good job your fire department's doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any more public comment? All right. Seeing none, we bring ourselves to reports and board comments. Let's see. I don't have my agenda up as far as our openings. I believe we have some February Planning Commission vacancies, and I think we're going to handle those probably the next meeting, I would think. I'm sure we have applications in from everyone interested at this point. We do have an alternate position in the board review that we need to find a member for. Our EDA positions are pretty much in alignment right now. And we do have the one vacancy in the ZBA. So I will keep searching, and I would have to thank also the people out here that are watching this. We do have a vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate. And we would appreciate, if you're interested, getting an application into the township. There is I believe the application's online on the website that you can download, fill out, and drop off. And then the board members, if you happen to know anyone that might be interested in that vacancy. The ZBA is a really important device that we have here, and has an important function. And the alternate positions are excellent for people that are trying to get their feet wet. Mr. Sheehan Stahl was an alternate for, I think, a couple of years before he got a full-time, so he understood the lay of the land and comes in prepared. So again, let's keep our eyes and ears open for people that might be interested. Mr. Horton, would you be interested in another board position?
Sir, I am probably got my calendar full.
Okay, okay, all right. All right, so that brings us to board comments as far as reports are concerned. Tim, we'll start with you and the county board.
Sure. I'm going to jump to a different meeting that I went to, and that was the Michigan Township Association Isabella County Chapter meeting that takes place 4 times a year here in the county. And I don't know, I'm curious if the board members get information about that board meeting.
First time up, or?
It's a pretty important meeting in the sense that all the townships come to this meeting. And Catherine from MTA, an attorney, was there, and she was talking about, and Lisa, this might really be of interest to you, talking about FOIA requests. And there's much discussion about the Emily FOIA request that went out for the 2016 election, requesting very substantial amounts of information. So she went through and gave a good history about FOIA. She provided a tool that I have for you to, it's very comprehensive, but it's kind of the flow chart of what you need to check off as you may receive a FOIA to assure that we're following what's required. And she brought together some important points about, you know, if a FOIA request may cost over a certain dollar amount, which I think is $50, you can request, you know, half of that up front. But it is very informative. She also left me with a little information on township marijuana regulation proposal 1 of 2018, that I'll put this information in our library in the trustee's office to look at. And but if we're not on the board, John Pejet is the chair. Is the chair of that board, and might want to contact him to make sure he has your information in his database. I know Union Township was only represented twice in 2018 at those meetings. And I also attended the Isabella County Board of Commissioners meeting. I'll be brief on that, as I probably don't want to steal Commissioner Horton's thunder, but there was conversation about E. coli point of sale, how that's going, discussion in regards to the establishment of a jail ad hoc committee, as the county is considering the possibility of building a new jail. There was also a rezoning that was proposed out on east or west M20, just past Coldwater Road, that had about 13 acres of property in, and there's speculation of maybe a auto sales business going in out there. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Bill?
I road commission meeting tomorrow night.
Okay. All right. Lisa?
Meeting's next week.
All right. All right. We had EDA last week. Pretty standard approval checks. Not much going on, so not much to report there either. All right. So let's move us on to consent agenda. And we'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right.
I'll support it.
Motion and support. Any discussion?
I took a look at the warrants and everything seemed to be in order.
All right. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda approved, and we move on to new business. Item A is going to be a discussion and an action item. This is going to be to award the contract for the purchase of a Pierce Commercial Chassis Top Mount Pumper Fire Truck to Halt Fire Incorporated.
Before we get started, I'll just mention that I am a employee of the city of Mount Pleasant. This purchase is a truck for Union Township to be utilized by the city of Mount Pleasant Fire Department. But I don't really see that being a member of the fire department has any real substantial impact on recusing myself from this. So unless anybody objects, I'll participate.
No.
You're fine.
May I?
Yes, sir.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. This paperwork for this agenda item begins on page 40 of your agenda packet. And as indicated, it's you're considering awarding a contract to Halt Fire, Inc. for the purchase of a fire truck in the amount not to exceed $447,573 and authorize the township manager to sign a purchase agreement. As you know, the township and the city participate in a joint fire service agreement. It was the most recent one was approved earlier this year, and as part of that agreement, approximately every 20 years or so, the township purchases a fire truck for inclusion in the fleet for the Mount Pleasant Fire Department. The truck is titled in the township's name. It's recorded as an asset on our books, but maintained by the city and housed at their facility. The city, in this case, handled the competitive purchase process per the city's purchasing policies. They developed the truck specifications. They're the ones that of course use it, and also manage the bidding and evaluation process. The township administration did meet with the city fire department on numerous occasions, going back 8 months. So we were intimately involved in the process, and we're aware along the way of the specifications, the process, and provided input into the township's expectations regarding the process and the budget. That process concluded with a recommendation, and the letter is in your agenda packet, or letter of recommendation from the Mount Pleasant fire chief to purchase the indicated truck, and the old truck then will be sold. Mount Pleasant Fire Department will help facilitate the sale of that. We have budgeted revenue in the FY19 budget. I want to say $30,000, it might be $40,000 is incoming revenue pending the sale of that. So the administration recommends that you approve or award the contract for the purchase of the truck to Halt Fire. And then with us tonight are members of the Mount Pleasant Public Safety Department, headed by the Chief Paul Laurie, who's here, and then Mr. Deckett spoke earlier from Halt Fire if you have any, I'll say, technical questions. Thank you.
I just have one question. On page 42, it said there's a savings of $14,454 if it's all prepaid. So is it still 447 we're going to approve, or 433?
It's 447. We're not recommending that we pay 100% of the purchase price up front.
Right.
It's almost $500,000.
don't we have that budgeted though? I mean, that was
We do,
the
but
last couple of years we've been saving.
ultimately, it's up to the board, but our thinking is that if you pay for something this large all up front, you lose some leverage if something's occur along the way, if you've paid for all of it up front. There's a problem along the way.
Well, obviously, there's been a long-standing relationship between this gentleman and the fire department, correct? It's been multiple purchases?
Yes, we have two other Pierce pumpers. One's a 2008, one's a 2010, that we currently also have.
Okay, all right. Everything's been delivered on time, no
Never had a
issues?
problem. That helped us kind of push toward where we're at today, is happy with everything that we've had all along the way.
I'm kind of the mindset with Bill, if we've already got the money budgeted and there's a cost savings and there's been a long-standing relationship. I understand the other possibility of leverage. Mr. Lannon, if you'd like to
Well,
weigh in on this too.
I guess you'd want to look at the money, what you can do with that amount of money over the time we would have it versus paying it out. You know, what sort of
It's already budgeted though.
interest
It's already,
and things you could,
we have interest, yeah.
I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
what's the difference?
What's the difference in,
Would you earn more than the savings? I don't know how.
what's the
we're-
delivery time?
About 9 months. About
9 months. So essentially 9 months of interest as opposed to the $14,000 savings.
What do you guys recommend?
I would suggest, manufacturers, things can happen, they can, hopefully, the manufacturer that is chosen, this gentleman simply represents the manufacturer. He is not the manufacturer. And things can happen in manufacturing where decisions are made and there's downturns in their product. And so I would agree that keeping the leverage by keeping some of the money is probably prudent.
Lisa, would you like to weigh in on this at all? It's a lot of money, obviously. We're spending it within the 9 month. We have the money budgeted. I guess the question is when Mount Pleasant's purchased these trucks, have they taken the prepaid option or have they been doing the?
Yes, the city has done the prepaid option before. In the contract also is everything from bid bonds to performance bonds to all that within the contract itself to guarantee that you're going to end up with the product that you are purchasing.
It's almost $15,000 of savings, which I guess again the weighing in is that our money is basically in a bank account collecting interest otherwise. So I have no idea what interest is involved in 9 months at $450,000. Maybe our finance director could weigh in on that. I'm going to invite you to join because this is kind of pertinent, I think, to my decision. Is there?
Well, there's enough money in a savings account right now to cover it that's earning 1.3% interest
Per year. So what is that over the course of 9 months?
Let me add
1%.
that.
I mean, is it anywhere near $14,000?
I don't think so, no.
Sounds like
What,
4,000.
no way. It's,
5,000.
To put it in a little context, historically, at least for your construction projects, you don't normally pay all that up front. You pay it out over time and you hold some back. And this really wasn't a recommendation from a cost of capital perspective. It was more, did we think it was prudent to write a check for almost $500,000 and then hope for the best? I don't doubt the manufacturing. It's just purely a business perspective. But we just need a motion. It's up to the board, however you want to do it.
Can we get their opinion, what they would think?
I'm not gonna
Direct.
tell you how to spend your money.
I know,
I mean,
but-
you're looking at a company that's been in business for 75 years,
Since 1913.
since 1913. They don't just they don't just own fire apparatus, they also own Oshkosh. I mean, we're talking a huge company, so. But like Tim said, anything can happen to anybody, so.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think it'd be wise to hold our money as long as we can. Sears and Roebuck was a very large company back in 1913, and today I think they're just hanging on.
All right. At this point, we do need to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for the purchase of a Pierce commercial chassis top mount pumper fire truck to Halt Fire Inc., not to exceed the amount of $447,573, and authorize the township manager to execute the purchase agreement.
And do we have a second on Lisa's motion?
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. So further discussion on this.
I guess I have some discussion. What are we gonna do then? Over the next 9 months, we're gonna pay $50,000 a month? Or what are we gonna do? I
It'll
just
be
don't-
paid in full upon delivery at the end of the 9 months.
All right.
I'm kind of in the mindset where I keep looking at the cost savings and the fact that we're basically just pushing it down the road. So if it were my business, which it's not, that my tendency would be to always take the cost saving and take the prepaid option. Because I would rather have the $14,454 in the bank to use on something else. We're gonna spend the money anyway in 9 months. I mean, I'll go along with the final vote on this, but that's where I'm at.
Well, along that line, if it was my business, I think I'd insure my $500,000 and spend a little money and make sure I'm getting the product. We're not gonna be the ones evaluating it, it's gonna be the Mount Pleasant Fire Department, so I think that will allow them to assure and give them the backing that the product comes in as specified to the standards that they were expecting. So I'd see it as an insurance policy.
Okay.
If it helps the board, at 1.5%, the interest by holding on to the money would be about $6,700, and then you got your savings if you pay all up front of 14, so you net, give or take, $6,500 to $7,000.
Okay. All right, that helps my brain. It's easier to swallow than 14. All right, any further discussion? All right, let's go ahead and take this to a vote then. This would be to approve a contract, let's see, the contract for the purchase of a Pierce commercial chassis top mount pumper truck to Halt Fire Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $447,573, and authorize the township manager to execute the purchase agreement. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion does carry. And we move on to item B. And this is going to be to consider the approval of a job description for the position of accounting specialist.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So the paperwork on this item begins on page 44 of your packet. The creation of this position in support of the finance department was authorized by the board and originally funded in 2018. This is part of the ongoing effort to reshape the organization to meet the ever-evolving needs of the community. This position will allow the finance director to devote more time to strategic activities, high-level fiscal analysis, organizational policy development and implementation, and increase the overall efficiency of organizational operations. Originally, implementation was scheduled for July of 2018, although due to limited space in Township Hall, it was determined that it would make just as much sense to wait until the remodeling of the Public Services Administration building was complete. Responsibilities included in this position under the supervision of the finance director include reconciliation of general ledger accounts, processing, coordination of accounts payable, accounts receivables, preparation of journal entries, assisting with benefits administration, payroll, also providing assistance with the annual audit, the budget preparation, and generally speaking, other fiscal activities. The knowledge and experience outlined in the job description call for a bachelor's degree in accounting or business administration or some sort of related field with at least 2 years of experience or some combination thereof. The recommended job description is in your packet beginning on page 46. The budgeted annual wage and benefit expenses for this position are $67,600. They are part of your approved FY19 budget. At least in terms of FY19, we currently have a part-time position budgeted in the finance department. Once this position is filled, that position would then go away, and there'd be some net savings from that perspective. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
What are we currently spending on a part-time basis then, over the course of a year for the assistant?
$15 an hour, I believe. $14 an hour.
I just looked something up today, so. It's approximately $17,000 plus benefits.
Okay, and so they're obviously benefits, they're not qualifying for health care if they're part-time, right?
Not the current part-times.
Okay, all right.
What benefits would they get then?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What benefits would they get then? You're
The
just
new
like
position?
Social Security, stuff like that?
The part-time
FICA.
person,
Right. All that, is that the benefits?
Social Security, like FICA tax.
Yeah, yeah.
Workers' comp.
Right, so there's no,
Unemployment.
right.
Those sorts of things.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So then the base salary would be, because the 67 is including benefits, so the base salary would be closer to 50. Is this the 51,428 that you have on there? Or?
The 67 is wages and benefits. I don't recall, and maybe Ms. Teal does, what the salary portion of that is.
It was somewhere around 40,000 was our estimate.
40,000.
40,000. So it would be $27,000, and that's including FICA, unemployment, on top of health
Employer
care.
contribution to retirement.
Right.
Gotcha.
Health
Okay.
care,
Okay.
dental, vision.
Gotcha.
It's a fully benefited position.
Gotcha.
Part of the bargaining group.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve the job description for the position of accounting specialist.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and second. Further discussion?
Yes. I'm a little confused on that. Okay, so you got the 67,624, but what's the 51,428? Is that without the benefits?
Well, no, what I tried to articulate, and I apparently didn't do a very good job of it, for 2019 only, okay? We're assuming that this position, we've budgeted this position for 6 months.
But it might be a 9-month position. Okay.
We've budgeted for 6. We've also budgeted 6 months of a temporary position.
Yeah.
And so that, and then come July, when we assume this position would be filled, we'd be eliminating the expense on the part-time position. So for just fiscal year 19, the net is estimated at $51,000.
Oh, okay.
But then fast forward to 2020, where you're in a full fiscal year, then it's the 67,000 range.
And that's including all the benefit, but it's like almost as much as the
Includes all the
finance director, isn't it? I mean, it's so close. I mean, what's,
I believe the finance director's base salary is closer to 60, and this one's in the 50 range, or I'm sorry, the 40 range. Benefits here at the township are about 2/3 of the base salary. And keep in mind that this position, as all of them, will be going through that
okay, and then another one,
evaluation.
like the job functions, it said, like number 2, for the taxes and stuff, isn't that like the job of the assessor or the treasurer?
It would be more the position of the treasurer. It would not be an assessing function.
I mean, but would it be appropriate to, you know, put a job description out for the treasurer's duties?
So consider the general ledger in its entirety, all the funds,
Okay,
general fund, fire fund, tax fund, utility funds, all of that. All of those are reconciled by the finance department, and it would not be my advice anyways to start having various funds reconciled at various department levels, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
but it says like enters invoices for tax disbursements and,
And that's what this position does, and currently all the tax, except for maybe the printing of the bills, the disbursement is handled by the finance director and the temporary person from the finance office. They review the reports that are kicked out of the tax module for collections from the prior 2 weeks, and how much is owed to taxing unit A, B, C, D. There's a dozen of them or so. And those, that paperwork's generated, so those checks are cut. That's all done by the staff of the finance department.
oh, I might have one more. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, I guess I got a question, and not so much on this, as I appreciate the fact that we're looking at the description and, you know, going over it with a fine tooth and making sure that, you know, we agree with it. We had a posting go out for, in the assessing department, for the same type of a position, taking Ms. Chaffee's place after retirement. I guess so we have tax specialists in that, and I'm questioning if the assessing department should be again delving into the treasurer's wheelhouse as far as the taxes, the tax specialist portion of the description. And I know it's not this, but it's kind of pertinent because we didn't get a chance to approve that job position or the posting like this one.
You
And
didn't get a chance to approve that
Yeah.
job description.
Description, exactly, yeah, we
because
approved
it
the.
was only slightly changed from the existing.
Exactly, I just was questioning that I know that it's a little bit of a conflict of interest and maybe slightly borderline iffy as to whether you can have the assessing department handling that particular role. And so I wasn't
I
sure if
think the
you.
taxation piece that comes about on the assessing side is primarily a customer service phone call, you know, my taxes, where they paid, you know, it's all part of the same,
Okay,
you know, software and, you know, the BSNA, whether.
but they wouldn't be physically helping to print the tax itself.
Oh, they very well might be.
But isn't that where the question lies as to the assessing mechanism and the distribution and collection mechanism?
I don't
They
think
should
that
be
the-
somewhat separate, shouldn't they?
This is not a segregation of duty issue or a
Mhm.
conflict of interest issue. This position would not be, this accounting specialist position would not be involved in trying to determine what the appropriate assessed value is of,
Mhm.
of the property. Alternatively, the position that Ms. Chaffee used to hold,
Mhm.
that position, just like any of the other positions, will help, for instance, print tax bills, if needed, because we have limited staff.
Mhm.
The assessor is the one by rule that inputs the millages, for instance, not the treasurer.
Mhm.
That's the job of the
Yeah,
assessor.
yeah.
And so there's not a conflict there because, I mean, your conflict might come in if the person's setting, you know, assessed values, you know, by law, the assessor is also taking the documentation that we receive from the taxing units and establishing the millage.
Yeah.
You know, the L4029 that we sign every year.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure the objective and the approval of the position by the board back in 18 was in recognition of we need additional support in the finance department.
Mhm.
And that's what this position is for.
Mhm.
It does not diminish the position that Ms. Chaffee held. That position has not changed in terms of classification or salary. And because of workload, I don't see by bringing this position on board
Mhm.
that there'll be not enough work for Ms. Chaffee. We have more work than we can.
No, that wasn't my question. My question was in the description of the assessing assistant position. I was questioning the tax specialist portion of that description, with it being in the assessing department, and whether we're crossing the line between the assessing department and the treasurer, and the duties involved between the two.
That job description doesn't do that.
Okay.
The word tax, if you will, in that job description is, you know, assessing is nothing without taxation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Yeah.
they're,
Yeah.
you know, whether you want to call issuing tax bills one thing and assessing another, they're all part of the General Property Tax Act.
Mhm.
There's just one tax act called the General Property Tax Act. There's a whole section, whole pages that's this thick, devoted to the assessing function, but it's called the General Property Tax Act.
Mm.
So we tried to make the job description of Ms. Chaffee's position a little bit more broad in its title, so they could so it would reflect more accurately what it actually does
Mm-hmm.
and what it has been doing. And that involves often answering questions about taxes. If the treasurer's not here, somebody's got to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. All right, any further discussion?
I just mentioned that it looks like a pretty comprehensive job description for the duties that are expected for this position, and seems pretty appropriate.
Lisa has a question.
The salary will be just over or just under like 45,000, 40,000? I don't feel comfortable not knowing what the salary is.
Do you have that, Ms. Teal?
I know that we budgeted around 40,000. That was an estimate because we don't really know, what the salary range, you know, that will come back with the salary study, with the survey that's being done.
Oh,
And
so this isn't a set amount, we're waiting
Well-
for the,
this is from budget. The numbers are from budget.
okay.
But that salary survey, that study.
Because that's what I was wondering, what if we go and hire somebody for way too much and then the salary says is what, like 30,000, we're overpaying somebody like $10,000 to $15,000.
Well, my hope is that the salary study and survey gets done in advance, so we have a range, an appropriate range.
Okay,
So
then-
then we can hire at the appropriate salary.
okay, then I feel more comfortable.
Okay, so we're, right now, when people are answering this or inquiring about the position, at this point in time, we really don't have, per se, a set salary to give them.
We have not posted this position?
You haven't yet? Okay,
No, we
so-
haven't even approved the job description.
Okay, so at what point in time are we thinking about posting it then?
I think it says it.
If we hope to have somebody in by, say, July 1, just theoretically,
Okay,
I might back up 90 days that we would start maybe I'll say the active hiring process, posting, and then, you know, that'll be posted for a month, and then we'll review applications for a couple weeks, and then we'll have interviews, and we hope to have the classification study done in about 90 days. Say that would be the end of March, so we think the timing will work pretty well.
okay, so somewhere around mid-year.
Well, you never know what benefits are gonna be either, because if you hire a single person and just say,
Yeah,
their health insurance isn't gonna be as much as a family, so.
That's why I
Right.
said I'd like to see
Yeah.
like a specific,
And we would have
Kind of
used,
salary
we would
wise.
have used a family, but we
Right.
would have used the highest.
Worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario, right.
okay. So we got hope to hire a single person. All right, I'm satisfied. So, any other questions? Let's go ahead and bring it up to vote then. This would be to approve the job description for the position of accounting specialist. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we move ourselves to our last item in new business, which is policy governance 3.1 governing style.
Hey, Ben, can I just say quick
Yes, sir.
here? I just checked the email, and Phil sent us an email like at 6:45 saying that he's ill and not gonna be here.
Ah, okay.
So I don't know if anybody,
so Phil's
obviously none of us
excused.
checked our email.
Thanks, Bill.
You're checking your email during meetings?
Well, it just flashed up, so
Okay, all right, okay.
I looked at it, 'cause it said Phil, well, it said Phil, so that's why I looked at
You're
it.
excused. All right, so this is gonna be, discussion on policy governance 3.1.
Which is titled Governing Style, and this policy is reviewed normally in January of each year. The policy is in your packet, page 49. You'll see the paperwork, and the policy itself is rather lengthy. It starts on page 52 of your agenda packet, but it is at the highest level. The policy indicates that the board will govern with an emphasis on outward vision rather than internal preoccupation, encouragement of diversity of viewpoints, strategic leadership more than administrative detail, clear distinction of board and chief executive roles, collective rather than individual decisions, and future rather than past or present viewpoint, and being a proactive body versus a reactive body. As I said, the full policy is in your policy, or is in your agenda packet, and this is for board member discussion.
All right, with that,
Thank
let's
you.
open up the discussion. Lisa, you want to start it off?
Sure.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
so on, okay, D, I put no. Like the clear distinction of board and chief executive roles, I think there's a little confusion on some of that. And it says, how will you improve on it? I said with the policy governance meeting that's coming up. You know, maybe there be a little more explanation, blah, blah, blah. And then F, I put, you know, future rather than past and present. I wrote, we look at all of them kind of as a whole, not just look into the future. We kind of look, you know, look at everything. That's what I put.
Tim, I'm going to swing it over to you.
All right. I indicated that my thoughts were probably for myself. I'm going to try to work much harder this year on looking at long-term goals and try to stay out of preoccupation with the operations, day-to-day operations. You know, when we came together early as a board, we kind of talked about how old policies, ordinances, and things like that aren't necessarily up to date and clear. I kind of hope that maybe we spend more time looking at those sort of things that will lay out more clearly for the staff what the expectations and operations are, and allow them to do their jobs with the guidelines and policies and such that we set forth. So up to this point, you know, I think we've struggled a little bit with the long-term vision and have gotten more involved into the operations. But it's a new year. We are working on trying to understand and operate under policy governance by having some additional training and review of what that's all about. And so as things come before us, you know, we need to really think about assure that it is a question for the board to be considering, and if it isn't, if it's at the staff level, we'll try to understand what we've already said about those things through policy, and if there's voids in policy or updating that needs to be done on policy. I hope that's an area that we as a board will just spend more time in. Now, how do we go about reviewing those policies? You know, that's going to take some initiative on our part, and maybe that should be part of the agendas we set forth, and the work that we ask ourselves to do is, let's take a policy that may be older and look at it and look at its relevancy and see what's may need some tweaking to help the staff and the management succeed in their operations as we set forth, because their success is based on how we allow them to succeed through our policies and rules.
Yeah, I agree. And we can kind of look at, you know, some of the items that come before the ZBA to get a clue as to, you know, where we need to look. We've seen some things come forward that we've seen that we know where we need to look. So I would, and I think maybe that we should be having more work sessions. You know, and maybe that's, I know the city has a lot of work sessions on and we don't really do that much, and I think that maybe that's something that we could even do, maybe, you know, is to try to maybe plan maybe a quarterly work session of some type where we can address some of these things.
I know the county actually does, they have committees and commissioners are assigned to various committees and they have their committee work. But then before each of their regular board meetings, they've spent several hours typically together as a group doing a work session. So they've had a chance to hash things out in a little more depth and come to decisions at their meetings, you know, in a more timely fashion, where we're hashing things out at our meetings more.
Yeah.
That would have taken place. So there's
Yeah. So
ways
maybe
to go
shorten
about
up their
it,
meetings by having the work sessions too. But
things that our
Yeah.
board certainly can talk about and see what we can do to become a stronger, smarter board.
yeah, thank you, Tim. Bill.
I looked at like 3.1.3 and it talks about self-disciplining. I think we do a pretty good job of that. I think if there's a matter concerning things, we bring it up. I agree with you guys that we need to have some more work sessions and maybe we can get over some of the humps that we've experienced the first couple of years. And I like what Tim said, moving on to the future, let's look at getting some projects done that will help our citizens.
Yeah, and I agree, Bill. I think that, you know, with the EDA last week, Cheryl Hunter had come forward and spoke a little bit about, you know, the commitment that they'd made to their business with the sidewalks, and you know, we're addressing the intermittent sidewalk issue as we speak. I think that, you know, maybe we should look at that street, and this is something that we talked about, or I brought up in the past, is that the lighting out there, but that's a future project, and that would encourage business, and we don't really talk about that stuff, and I would like to have more discussions on things like that that encourage business and revenue, and but also is fair to the people that have made investments. So I agree with you, Bill. Thank you for bringing that up. About early last month, I've been reading our governance over and over and over and over again, and trying to I read statute and I read governance and I read statute and I read governance, and I was like going, man, it doesn't seem like it really meshes. And Lisa had brought up that she doesn't necessarily follow the governance as much as she does statute, and you know, we had one member of our board mention that statute doesn't matter because we have policy governance, and obviously that's incorrect. But in that, I, for some reason or other, happened upon in page 27, Appendix C. And when I read Appendix C, and I read some changes made in 4.9 of 2013, and then I went back to Policy 4.0, all of a sudden, this whole document changed. And it talks about township management team, and township manager. And definitions that when the document refers to management team, it refers to the manager, the supervisor, the treasurer, and the clerk. When it talks about management, it talks about the manager, the supervisor, the treasurer, and the clerk. And when it says manager, it's simply the manager itself, and wholly is responsible for those duties. And then when you read 4.0, and then you go into the document, but then we go into 3.1, and you know, I see failures, because I don't know if we keep saying that we're following this document, but in reality, we really haven't. I think that we haven't been following policy governance as per those definition changes. And so I'm looking at February 4th to figure out 2.5 years later is what are our roles? You know, what are our roles? You know, I've been told that my only role is to run a meeting, and I disagree with that completely, because when we get a lawsuit, my name's on it. So fully, if my name is on a lawsuit, then my only role isn't just to run a meeting. So what I would like to do moving forward is after 2.5 years is figure out this puzzle. And I do think that this document, when those changes were made, it should have been a lot clearer, and it should have been at the beginning, and I shouldn't have had to feel like I'm in Nicolas Cage, and you know, where he's digging around for the statue or the Declaration of Independence trying to figure out all the secrets. So National Treasure, the movie. And so I think moving forward, I like to have, you know, what is the management team involved with in this aspect? You know, what are the sole duties of the manager? Have we been following this correctly? And, you know, I just want to have some clarity, because, you know, Lisa, Kim, and myself, you know, we're legally culpable for a lot of these activities. Henceforth, I wouldn't be named in lawsuits. And I need some clarity on this. And as far as 3.1 is concerned, I agree with pretty much everything that Tim and Bill brought forward. And I like looking at the future. I like looking at our ordinances and trying to decide, you know, what ones need to be tweaked. I mean, you know, we might not be in this position in 2 years. And so we should take this opportunity to, you know, leave a legacy, I think. And we should be able to drive down Bluegrass Road and see lighting and sidewalks and say, you know what, that was our board that did that. Because that's all part of safety, and that encourages business. So, and that's where I'm at with 3.1. Long-winded, but that's where I'm at. All right, any other comments before we close this item? All right, so that's going to bring us up to extended public comment, and this is going to be restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. This is an opportunity for comments only. Questions of the board will not be answered at this time. Jim, would you like to come up for this portion? And I don't know if we'll put the timer on you, really.
Well, that's okay.
But it's 8 o'clock, just to let you know. I'll
There
let
you
you know
go.
when it's 8:04.
I don't have a hockey game tonight, so I can
Okay.
go a long time if you'd like. So, Jim Horton, 3089 Hunters Trail, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'm District 4 County Commissioner. Just give you a real quick, I'll try to be brief. We have a new county commissioner named Steve Swaney. I believe he's District 5. Don't quote me on that because it's late, but took David Lang's position. Steve is another fellow hockey player. So, very nice gentleman. I believe he represents just a little part of Union Township. I believe it's kind of goofy at times where some of the areas I primarily represent most of it. But Steve, this year I was very fortunate to be elected or nominated amongst the board members as vice chairman. So I'm now vice chairman of the county board, which is I consider that a great honor. Committees that I'm on, again, I'm going to be on the Finance and Administration Committee of the county, which I chair. I'm also on the Planning Commission, the 911 Emergency Management Board, the Medical Control Authority Board, and also a member of 2 ad hoc committees, one being the E. coli, which I now chair, but that one really is not that active anymore. But we were, Trustee Landon mentioned about the presentation by the Steve Hall from the County Health Department. We will be getting one to get an update as far as the point of sale, or the time of transfer, actually we call it, ordinance that went into place last year, having to do with septic and well water. Also, too, we just created an ad hoc committee for the jail, of which I am on, along with former Commissioner former Commissioner David Lang, who's going to chair it. I'm going to vice chair that, along with County Commissioner, Chairman of the Board, George Green, Sheriff Mike Main, George Mark Duthie, our County Administrator, and Rich Jakubiak, the Facilities Manager, will all be on that committee. Our first meeting is going to be held on Tuesday, February 5th at 12 noon in the County Commissioner room there. So It's a public meeting, and you're welcome to attend. One of the issues coming up in front of our board now is the Michigan Indigent Defense that we're putting together. We're going to be creating a public defender's position, office. Have not, as far as last time I knew, we have not gotten a contract back from the state yet, but that is in the works. We also have a managed counsel contract that's ongoing. We just renewed that for 9 months this year. Over the last 5 years, the county has spent on that contract roughly $500 and something thousand per year on average. So just giving you an idea, that is quite a significant dollar expense for indigent defense. Stuff that does not count with this new fund will be capital cases such as capital murder, also juvenile defense, and also probate. Probate will not also be indigent, will not be under this plan. So we're going to but still have a managed care component attached to it. I mentioned earlier about the Planning Commission for Isabella County. Thursday, January 31st at 7 p.m. at City Hall, not at the county building, but at City Hall. The Isabella County Planning Commission is going to be holding a special hearing in regards to special use permit hearing for the wind turbine plant. So that should be very well attended. So that is now in front of the Planning Commission for Isabella County. So again, that time is going to be Thursday, January 31st, 7 p.m. at City Hall. And I think I gave a quick and brief update. Anybody have any questions for me? Again, you know how to reach me. I'm in contact with a lot of you already. So I try to be reachable, trying to get on the best committees, represent you as well as I can. I think that's important. This is going on my 7th year now as county commissioner, and I enjoy what I'm doing. So, you have any questions?
Yeah, I just have one, Jim. You were talking about the meeting next Tuesday night with the wind turbines.
That's Thursday.
Thursday,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I got a letter at home.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple people ask me how come Union Township people got letters.
Well, I believe you're across the road.
Right, I'm across. That's what I told
You're within
them.
600 feet of
Right.
affected property.
Right.
That is how I believe that's the determination. Is that if you're within 600 feet, 600 feet is kind of how they're judging that.
Yeah.
So if you have property that abuts it in any way, shape, or form,
Right.
and I believe you're across the
Right,
street
and
from
there's
plant
that
position.
couple other people that I talked to. That's the same
Yeah,
thing with
that
them.
is-
I said you got to realize Isabella Township's across the road,
No.
and you know.
That's another thing too. Besides that, you also got to consider. I believe the road commission should be involved. And now you got me started. Thank you. The road commission, I think, should be involved. We're going to have big turbines. If you ever seen them being staged down at the 127 rest area, I know I can go down and look at them off the freeway and just going. They're huge and they're heavy. So
Well,
I think
these are gonna be
the
bigger.
road commission needs to be involved and possibly doing a study to see pre and post, and see what effects these things are going to have on our roads. That should be. I'm not going to say if that's going to be presented also, but I think that should be one component of it, because it could be, again, it could be an issue because some of those roads, especially if you have to go down some of the side roads of the county, and it could affect the township if they come through the township roads. So.
I was at a road commission meeting one night when they approached them. They were talking, the road commission, how they're going to have to widen intersections, and so they've had those discussions
It's
there.
more right. It's a huge undertaking for our county. So again, that'll hopefully be in some of the details presented. So. Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Trustee Land, and also one more other thing, just as a side thing. Last month, I had the opportunity to attend the Planning Commission, Union Township Planning Commission, in regards to proposed special use by the Road Commission. And I'll just be very honest with you. I thought your Planning Commission did an excellent job. I was very impressed. They handled it very professionally, were very thorough, took every comment that anybody had to offer, then some. The room was very well run, very well organized. So hats off to your Planning Commission. They did an excellent job. So I was very proud as a Union Township resident. It was very nice to see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any more public comment at this point? Seeing none, we move to item 12, manager's comments. Mark.
Thank you. Just briefly, attended the grand opening of the Holiday Inn and Suites earlier today. They had their ribbon cutting. It went from 5 to 7. I went by there for an hour or so prior to this meeting. So that's good that that's open and operational. The administration conducted some training for the building and planning module through from BSNA. We brought in somebody from BSNA last week. About 7 people attended, trying to maximize our use of the building module from a workflow and administration perspective. Township was represented at an e-waste meeting at the County Material Recovery Facility last week. Also attending were representatives from the Conservation District, the tribe, the city, county, CMU, discussions along the lines of talking about trying to establish or how to deal with, you know, a long-term solution for the e-waste. So we're involved with that. Our cleanup day, 2018, we collected 12,000 pounds of e-waste. In 2017, we collected approximately 9,000 pounds, and that was just from our cleanup day. And then, for what it's worth, there was an accident out here at the corner of Lincoln and Pickard early last week. The accident caused one of the vehicles involved, it was a construction truck, to end up in our parking lot, damaged one of our own vehicles, a township vehicle, also damaged one of our employee vehicles, spread a bunch of materials out of the truck around our parking lot that we cleaned up. But all that has been, from our perspective, submitted to the insurance company. So that is it.
Okay. Any answer back on the truck as far as whether it's comparable or if we're going to have to replace it?
We've submitted a claim. I don't know that it's been yet sent to the body shop for review, so I guess I don't know the answer to that yet.
All right, let's go to final board comment. We'll start with Lisa.
Okay, so we're supposed to have a closed session tonight to discuss legal fees for Pat Dupree. So, not being able to know all of the information on it, but the time is very important. She needs assurance that the township's gonna take care of her. So, I wanna make a motion to pay Pat Dupree's legal fees for the lawsuit against her while she was performing her job duties.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on this. Looking at the definitions of a closed session, it was kind of like a borderline, I thought, question whether it should have been a closed session or not anyway, because I think we could have gone either direction, because there really isn't any financial or any issues the township would have as far as leverage or strategy. So I'm questioning whether we really couldn't have just done that in an open session if we had to. Tim, would you have any conversation at all on this or anything?
Boy, I was hoping to gain a lot more information in closed session discussion. The only comment I guess I'd make is to your motion, Lisa, there seemed to be more than the item that was going to be in front of us. When you say legal fees, I'm assuming you're talking
For the
attorney
lawsuit,
fees.
and then if there is a judgment against her for that also.
Yeah.
I mean, we should take care of our employees 100%. She was doing her job.
I believe that. But boy, I was hoping to gain a much more informative position to make a decision on it.
I guess my question is am I, I'm gonna have to direct this to Matt Tarrant. My question is looking at the standards for a closed session, to me it was somewhat borderline on the legal strategy side, because we're really not involved in this from a standpoint of legality. Really, what we're asking is whether there should be financial support for an employee that was performing their duties. So I wasn't sure if it really fell under the standard. I mean, you know what I mean? It was kind of like almost a little borderline.
I think you're thinking of a different piece of that section. This would fall under the fact that you were going to discuss a legal opinion from your attorney.
Okay. Because I did look up the Open Meetings Act and the closed session, and I guess where I was a little confused, and maybe you could clear my mind a little bit on this, is that to consult with attorneys regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with specific pending litigation, but only if an open meeting would have a detrimental financial effect on the litigating or settlement position of the public body.
That's not the section that we were operating under tonight.
In the closed session?
Correct.
Okay.
It's to discuss material exempt from disclosure by statute, so.
Okay, so item 6, to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right. That's what I was wondering. The other one didn't seem like it really.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think what we'd have to do then is we need to get some resolution to this as soon as possible. I think we'll have to schedule, we're looking at one sick member and one member that is going to be out of town just in the morning. We'll be back in town by tomorrow, so there's really no reason. We have, what, 18-hour notice on a meeting?
24. Well, yeah.
I think it's 18 hours, I believe, if I remember correctly. So we could go ahead and schedule a meeting for tomorrow evening if we wanted to. And I think it'd be pertinent. I mean, you know, she has to get this figured out because her clock is ticking here on getting legal representation.
What's the time frame?
Well, it was, what, 21, so you're down to 20?
I'm down to
20
20.
days?
20 days, yeah. So this is like, you know, and this was served electronically, I believe, on the 30th of November. So it's been a while. So it's been about 8 weeks.
That was a notice that she would be served.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
yeah.
not the service.
Exactly, but we've known about it, that it's pending from that point. So it's been about 8 weeks since we were notified, or she was notified. I mean, so I'm thinking that what we need to do is we need to address this ASAP. And I'm not sure on the time frame, but it seems to me, sticking in my mind, 18 hours seems to be the notification, and it has to be posted on the front door of the township hall or in that box.
Or we can just go with our motion. I don't know, they sent us all the information on it, so we read all that.
Mm-hmm. But we have the question, we have 2 questions that we have to answer. So I guess the first thing is we can answer one question and we can table the other until we have more knowledge on it, because there were 2 items on there that we needed to address. One was the indemnity, and one was the fees themselves. I mean, I agree with you. I'm going to vote, you know, in favor of this. But I think that it would be nice to have the other end of this argument too, or not so much the argument, but the other end of the question involved. Do we have, and I don't know if you can answer this, but we've notified the insurance provider, but yet we haven't received any notification back at this point in time, or?
This afternoon, we did receive a verbal determination. We've not received the written final. I would call it an indication of the determination verbally. We have not received the written final determination, and you know that will become, I think, a question of, that's a source of funding.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, it would still beg the question of, you know, whether or not, whatever the board wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
from a, say, a moral perspective, you know, I think you answer that whether or not you got insurance or not,
Yeah.
you know.
The biggest situation we have is that her name was on it, and it didn't say like her job description or the township, but it was for the lawsuits from her job from the courthouse, like where everybody else was, you know, that
And
got
then the other
served.
named
They
parties
just
in
wrote
this
it a little
were-
different.
Where the
So-
judge and also Steve Pickens, the,
If they would have put Pat Dupree's assessor, then it wouldn't have been an issue at all.
mm-hmm.
But it not saying her job description, that's why it's an issue,
The,
in my opinion.
your attorney gave you an opinion, you can discuss that in closed session.
Mm-hmm.
I'd advise that you discuss those kind of things in closed session. I don't know that you have to, you can discuss it in open, but I think that's a bad move. You could schedule a special meeting for tomorrow at 7 p.m. and if you had that determination tonight, it could be posted on the door tonight and you'd have a duly called meeting at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, or I guess,
Or if Pat requests the closed session, we don't have to have 5 to have the closed session, if she requests it.
that's a
per-
personnel matter. I'm not sure that that applies here. That's for personnel matters.
I would think it's certainly
I would think
be-
it's personal.
preferred to have all members available. We could send out an email to everybody saying, please take a look, we got a doodle poll coming out, time is of the essence. Let's do our best to see when we can all come together.
I don't think we have to worry about a dual poll. I think we just call the session.
Well, we know Norm won't be able to make it. Are we
Right.
sure
Phil's sick
Kim will
and
be
Kim
able
might
to
not be
make it?
back yet, so.
Right, will Kim be able to make it? And then we don't know how, what Phil's got going on.
I will not be available tomorrow evening. I have, training with the fire department, always.
Okay, we can stay with the legal fees and then, you know, the judgment can be postponed part.
Can you give
You
me,
know.
cost of that?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Which the insurance normally covers. I'm just saying the only difference is her job description isn't on it.
It'd be nice to know what the insurance provider has decided. That would make, obviously, this a lot less of an issue. When would we know this?
I think it's important we do what's right by the township, what's right by the employee, but there's an awful lot of information that needs to come forth in my mind to even remotely begin to make a prudent decision on this vote, on this motion before me.
So earliest you could do a meeting would be, you're not available
Friday.
tomorrow night, it'd be Friday. See, my concern here is we're pushing the envelope where we need to get some representation, and Pat needs to get some representation started because she's been hanging on a branch now for 2 months on this thing. So I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal, 2 days, but then all of a sudden we've lost Saturday and Sunday, and this person does not have an attorney. And, you know, I just feel like we really got pushed up against a wall on this thing, where this should have been something discussed a lot earlier than 1/23. We shouldn't be at this point. That's where I'm at. I think we should be making a decision at this point in time whether or not we're going to be providing the financial backing for her legal defense. She was performing her functions as an assessor. I don't know what kind of message this sends to the rest of the employees. I'm questioning how this insurance provider has taken 8 weeks and has not come up with an answer on it. Have they tried the case in their 4 walls of their building already and decided what they're going to do? I just can't imagine the time frame that's necessary to answer these complaints, how this could take 8 weeks.
Steve Pickens told me that his attorney needs to get in touch with Pat's attorney. He said it's hurting the case. So,
Yeah.
that's what I know about it.
Yeah, I just don't, this insurance provider, I don't know what their standard is, but if you get served a complaint, you typically have, what, 21 to 30 days to answer it. They're used to short time frames on deciding, but we're also paying for coverage. And I just am perplexed at how it has taken this company this long to decide whether or not they're going to defend a statutory employee who is performing her lawful duties.
May I?
Yes, sir.
And maybe I'll direct this question to Matt. The verbal indication of the determination through the phone call today, is there any harm in discussing that right here? Yeah, okay. And so a couple things related to this. And I share all your concerns, all the board's concerns. I think what you're basically talking about is paying for, first you're talking about paying for legal defenses. And remember that payment legal bills can begin to accrue anytime they want, and the township can still end up paying for those no matter when you make the decision. So your lack of making, not making a decision is not prohibiting the employee from going out and getting an attorney and beginning aggressive representation. It's not prohibiting that. The insurance, there's a couple things there. The verbal determination, and we may not end up agreeing with their interpretation, so we'd push back. There's a couple things. One is the employee, whether it's the assessor or anybody else, would be covered under the policy as an insurable party. That's the indication I have.
Okay.
The case, though, the matter itself, the claim that's been being made, that indication is that is not a coverable event, if you will. So from the insurance company's perspective, and remember, insurance is just insurance. I mean, all the time we have expenses, if you will, that aren't covered by insurance. But the indication is the contractual policy language is that the nature of this case, as it's articulated in the pleading, is not does not qualify under the contractual provisions of the policy, which makes the question of the individual being an insurable party moot. And that's the verbal indication I've gotten. When that comes in writing, what the normal practice would be is we would look at that, and we very well may disagree with that determination. We would have additional discussions with the insurance company And I've been involved to the point where we've disagreed with the insurance company where we sued the insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so a lot of balls can end up getting put up in the air. But you asked about the insurance company.
Yeah.
That's where that is. And
Maybe just ask you just one more question while you're in the middle here. Is that, so if she were to hire her own counsel, the problem is that the insurance provider is going to want to approve of that counsel or provide the counsel themselves. Am I correct in that assumption?
not necessarily.
Okay,
It's gone both ways where
Okay.
there are cases, and it kind of depends on the case, and
Mhm.
where the insurance company will say, we want to provide, you're covered, first you're covered. The determination is you're covered. And because of the case, we're going to, because it's their money, they're going to use their own attorneys, let's say, and to defend us.
Mhm.
And there's been other times here at Township where they've, I imagine because of the nature of the case, said, we don't, just use whatever attorney you normally use. And so so it's not by definition that the insurance company is going to assign an attorney if it's a coverable claim.
Okay.
The other piece, now you start talking about the attorney, is the township has an attorney,
Mhm.
Braun Kendrick. Matt Terrence representing them in this room right now. And even if the board, forget insurance for a minute, even if the board decides they want to cover the defense costs, it would not, that the attorney would not be from the Braun Kendrick firm
Mhm.
because of the conflict of interest. So Pat would still need to go out and get her own attorney. You know, the individual that's going to do the work.
Yeah.
And then they'd submit, if the board decided to pay the fees, they'd submit invoices.
Okay.
And that's kind of the high level from the insurance perspective, from the township attorney versus a personal attorney.
But they'd have to feel awfully comfortable with the attorney that she hired in order, and I'm assuming that they have arrangements with certain law firms to handle certain cases. With this being federal in nature, it limits the amount of availability of the you sort of want somebody fluent with federal.
You're into
right?
an area now that I can't, I'm not.
I mean, I think there's a lot of what ifs here is the
That's,
problem.
if if it was me, and I'm sure if it was you, you'd go out and get your attorney,
Mhm.
and you'd start spending money to defend yourself. And then, if the board of trustees or your employer decided then to cover those expenses, you just hand them the invoices. So it becomes a cash flow problem.
So the initial impulse or the initial feeling that you get here, it's not, we haven't gotten the official letters that the insurance company looks as though they're going to cover her legal expenses, but the indemnity end of it, they will not, based upon what they've looked at.
No,
Is that what you're saying?
that's not exactly what I said.
Okay.
The employee would be an insurable party.
Okay.
So there's that question.
Okay.
Is the employee an insurable party?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The case itself, is that a case that under the contractual provisions of the insurance policy, is that covered by the contract?
Okay, and they're saying they're not at this point in time.
And that has nothing to do with indemnity or legal defense. It's just going, this is a matter that is not covered under the contract of the insurance policy. That's their initial
Okay,
determination.
gotcha.
And the township has had other cases that we've submitted to the insurance company where the matter itself fell under the provisions of the contract. And in one case, they said, just use your regular attorney you want. And in another case, they said, because of the nature of the case, we'd like to, or we're going to assert our right to, here's your attorney. So we've had, in the township, just in the 2 years, we've had both cases. I have not seen one yet where the nature of the case did not fall under the contractual provisions of the policy. It's, there's some things of our homeowners and policy that just aren't covered. We end up having to pay for them ourselves. And that's the initial indication verbally.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the county's insurance provider covered Steve Pickens on this, right?
First of all, it's an ongoing litigation, so I'm not going to that.
Yeah.
I can't answer that in the affirmative, yes or no.
Okay. I think that was basically what I've heard is that they're covering us.
I'm just saying, we should back our workers 100% and any lawyer fees or whatever. She was doing her job.
Yeah. And that's the feeling I got in discussion with one of our other people that wasn't able to make it this evening. Was they were very strong in that same belief. Let's modify that motion and make it for the legal defense, but
I said
table
for
the
the-
indemnity. Is that
I
what we
didn't even
did?
say anything about the indemnity. I just said the legal
Legal
defense.
defense?
Or-
Okay, and then I think that she can
Fees.
get things started. I don't care what I hear, I'm still gonna vote that way, personally. And we do have a motion and a second on that, so we do have a motion on the floor.
So Ben, what you're saying is, with the limited knowledge, the speculation, the lack of clarity, the inability for us to collectively, as a full board, to discuss this, you're pretty much just saying whatever the cost is the cost. You want to,
I'm saying
on
that
the
she was
information
performing
you
her
have.
functions as the assessor. She was performing them in a legal manner. The county's treasurer was also named in this suit, as was the judge. The county's provider, from what I understand, is covering, the state of Michigan is covering on the judge. I've heard opinions on this. I've talked to retired federal court judges about this. And
About
the
this
consensus
case?
I get back about the situation. And I get back that we should be supporting our assessor.
yeah.
I know we should have a full board. I mean, we should be going into closed session and we should be discussing this, but I'm also looking at this clock ticking, and when you're talking an attorney for a federal court, I'm hearing numbers like $300, $400 an hour billable on this stuff, and I just think that, number one, we shouldn't be in this position right now. This should have been something that should have come up
A month ago.
yeah, and so we shouldn't be sitting on a time bomb right now. I mean, I feel that, we lose Friday, then we lose Saturday, Sunday, so now all of a sudden, that clock is no longer at 20, now it's at 16.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
going to be really hard.
I certainly believe there should be a lawyer contacted by the defendant. Bills aren't going to be payable today, tomorrow. It's been indicated, nothing is going to slow anything down by not making a decision tonight. I agree that we have to review the case in good faith. We absolutely, it's important from my perspective as the board to support employees when they're doing their job on behalf of the township. No question there. But I certainly won't be ready to support a motion at this point in time when I don't think we're sitting on a time bomb. There is a time factor, but I would like to have as full of a board as we could get, certainly the full board if possible, and be able to go into closed session and have some discussion. Reading what's been presented to me, this just didn't happen. This has been a ongoing litigation that's been in and out of various courts. Rulings have been made. So there's a lot of history here.
Yeah.
It wasn't 10 days ago, 20 days ago. This is
10 years ago.
been going on for a long time. So to sit here and I'm certainly not going to make such an important fiduciary decision, which impacts the township tonight. And-
When would
and-
you
and go
folks feel
forward.
comfortable as far as scheduling something? I mean, do we want to try to, to make sure everybody's here, would we do a Saturday?
Well, when the board can be here, I would certainly want our attorney who has information to provide to us and answer our questions.
Do you make time and a half on weekends? Okay. So
I
we
mean,
want to put out like a,
Our manager has given us information
yeah.
on this.
Mhm.
I don't have the date, but there's been a couple of correspondences that I'm aware from our manager. And there's been, some points taken, some suggestions, I believe. Have actions been taken on them? I don't know. There is so much that is in question and unknown to me. Certainly, I want to support an employee, absolutely 100%, if that is, if we can have discussion and understanding that things have been legitimate, which I'm certainly hopeful that everything is. But there's a lot of discussion that I think should take place before we move forward, and because I don't think as a collective board, I think we'll make the right decision. We'll go through things from an ethical point of view, from a fiduciary point of view, what's appropriate and right for the township. We will certainly do what's right for any employee if it's right for the township, and I certainly believe it probably is, but I think we need some discussion. I don't think not taking a vote on this tonight
I still
would
think we should
hamper
vote
anything.
on it. I'm sorry, but I really, if this was me and I was
You
doing
brought
my
a motion
job,
forward and it's been seconded. I hear that.
if it was my job and somebody did this to me, I can't even imagine being in the shoes of, think about
Well,
it.
What are the facts of the case? It's nothing we can discuss right now, but what do you know to be the
I
facts
read,
of the case?
didn't you read the,
Right, which leaves me with many, many, many questions that really can't be discussed in this open session.
I have had discussion with the employee,
I-
and I've worn two hats during those discussions. Let her know that as the township, we are exploring the, duty to defend. And then I've also put on my colleague, friend, fellow employee hat and go, hey, you were named in a suit. You can't wait around for your employer to decide to do anything. You need to protect yourself. And, as I think any one of us would do, you need to. So I know it's a financial thing,
Mhm.
it's a cash flow thing, but I could probably incur a month's worth of legal bills before I got a bill. And so, you know, I have been trying to keep the employee informed of what I'd do if I was in her shoes.
Mhm.
I text Phil, waiting to see if he could maybe meet Monday night.
I mean, talking to Mark, he said the reason why he even brought this up is because her name was separate and it didn't say assessor or.
Right, right.
And so that's why he had to go a different way about it. But I mean, it was still doing her job and everything else. I mean, if Ben was to get sued for something, or if you were to get sued and they didn't have the township on it, but it was for doing your job, you would think the township would still cover it.
We did have a similar case, but the supervisor and the one you referenced, Ben Gunning, comma supervisor, and you know, those kind of things make a world of difference in these, and that's why we're here.
And that's probably, let's face it, was probably something personal, right? So, well, you know, I just feel like we've
Call a special meeting.
I think we need to just go ahead and just call a special meeting. I would like to do it as soon as possible. You know, I don't see any reason why we have to wait till Monday, though. I'd rather
Well,
have her Monday is spend the time finding an attorney. I mean, I'd like to do it as soon as possible. If people are willing to do and I hate to have Matt drive from. You live in Saginaw, don't you?
So Ben, are you thinking the board will select an attorney?
I think that she has to do that on her own. I mean, how are we gonna pick an attorney? You know, I mean, this is a special beast. You know, I mean,
And
people that can handle that sort of thing is I mean, how many attorneys in Mount
And
Pleasant would be
you can
able to
select,
handle this?
you know, quite a range of attorneys that charge probably a wide range of fees.
Yeah.
And if you're paying for it and have no input, you know, I think that we're just, without getting the full board's questions answered, there's potential for very large costs that aren't even being considered, anticipated that could.
Well.
And I'm not trying to be negative to our
Yeah.
employee.
No.
Right.
No, you're being, you know, you're being responsible, and I understand that. We just need to give this person some clarity as soon as we can.
Well, I think Mark said he's done that. You know.
I would not be waiting around for my employer to make decisions when it came to me personally. I'd be taking care of my own business and then coming to the employer.
Well, let's call a special meeting. Let's look for,
Maybe.
do we want to go ahead and we have anything in the township hall on Monday night?
I don't believe so.
'Cause I don't think we have any.
Saturday, we don't.
I think we have we don't have a policy governance meeting Monday, do we?
No, that's the 4th.
That's next week, after
It's a week, 2 weeks.
What is Monday?
the 28th. There's a city meeting.
I don't see
Just
anything
saying.
on the schedule.
Well,
I don't believe there's any
That's the only thing I
schedule.
have
on my
And
agenda.
there's nothing going on here Saturday either.
let's schedule a special meeting. Do we want to go 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock?
Well, we can put a temporary request, but
We don't know. And then I don't
it's hard to
think
tell. I
Norm's
mean,
even.
we want our attorney here. We don't want
Yeah.
our attorney to come and have not enough to
Is
go
there a
into closed
conflict for
session.
you on Monday evening?
No, Monday's fine.
And you'd rather have it 6 o'clock than 7 o'clock, right? So
Either
you can
way.
get home?
Well, whatever.
I mean, it'd be nice to get home at a reasonable hour, right?
Sure.
'Cause the debate could go on for a
The
while.
attorney will accommodate our needs.
Okay, all right. I'm feeling though. I mean, let's shoot for 6 o'clock on Monday, and let's schedule for, if we have to push it to 7, let's push it to 7. But let's shoot for 6 o'clock on Monday.
We do have a motion on the table.
Yeah. You wanna modify your motion? Make it a,
Or rescind it, or?
Should I rescind it?
I think we
Is what
should
you're
just
saying?
rescind it and let's go ahead and schedule a special meeting. Let's make our decision on Monday night.
Okay.
Okay,
I agree.
okay. All right, now we can get Phil and Kim involved and, get Phil some vitamin C, get him healthy.
And you say Norm's anticipated back?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think he's gone to like the end of the month, I think.
Puerto Rico or somewhere, I can't remember where he told me. it was.
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
Mhm.
Do you know when Norm will be back?
I don't
I
believe
do
he's
not.
back until the end of the month. I think he's gone all next week. He's usually gone 2 weeks when he takes that trip, and he left last Sunday, I think. So I think let's go for 6 o'clock on Monday.
You gonna send email out tomorrow?
Yeah. So we need a minimum of 5.
5, right.
Yeah.
And then and then a unanimous vote of those 5 to go into closed session.
Okay. All right. So, let's see here. We were in final board comment, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Almost out of here, but not quite. Let's see. Hey, by the way, I concur, by the way, on what you said about the planning commission. I was very proud of the way they handled that whole discussion. That was so professional. I mean, they really did a heck of a job. So, kudos to them. I've tried to let them know individually after the meeting, but I thought that was great. I think I had a final board comment, but damned if I can remember what it was.
Did Lisa have any more?
That it? Okay. So, seeing we're up to item 15, which is adjournment, we're going to need to have a motion.
Did Tim have any final board comments?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
I got lost where we started.
Right.
I don't have any
Okay.
comments at
And then
this
Bill,
time.
did you?
I just had one.
Okay.
Have we heard anything from Nottawa Township? What's going on with their wastewater? Are they bring a proposal forward, or have they answered our proposal, or?
I thought I read that in the comments.
We have remained in contact with them. They have requested a proposal from us. We are still in the process of developing that. We've had meetings with our rate consultants to get to a rate as part of our proposal. And we've been staying in touch with them to make sure that their time frame is, that we're not getting in the way of their time frame, and we're not. So I think we're good there.
Okay, thank you.
I think we got everybody. We get everybody? All right, so we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.